The Hazari Armada swarmed Earth's skies, darkening the noon sun. But within hours of the first human defenders joining the battle, the Hazari invasion was crushed to dust, the remnants of their warships tumbling in flames through the atmosphere. The warlike Hazari had waged a brutal campaign of conquest across the galaxy for decades. Trillions of innocent lives had been snuffed out. Countless civilizations had been enslaved. Led by the ruthless Emperor Draco, the Hazari seemed unstoppable as they subjugated world after world with their advanced tech and overwhelming numbers. While the Hazari terrorized the stars, Earth remained isolated and oblivious, too busy squabbling over petty rivalries, politics, and resources to notice the threat growing beyond their skies. But everything changed when Isaac Reed, a brilliant human scientist, stumbled across a strange signal from deep space. He worked tirelessly to decipher it, and soon realized the awful truth. It was a desperate distress beacon from an alien race on the verge of annihilation by the Hazari. Isaac sounded the alarm, imploring Earth's fractured nations to wake up to the danger before humanity became the Hazari's next target. He reverse-engineered fragments of captured Hazari technology, working feverishly to devise new weapons that could turn the tide against the alien foe. But convincing Earth's bickering leaders to unite as one would be his greatest challenge yet. As the ominous shadows of Hazari warships fell across Earth's cities, a grim realization crystallized humanity's purpose like never before. Only together could they hope to avoid extinction. Old grudges fell away as all of Earth rallied as one to face the oncoming storm. There would be no second chances, no possibility of surrender or subjugation. It was victory or death, not just for any one country, but for the future of all mankind. A battle for the ages was about to begin, marking humanity's debut on the galactic stage. When the first shots rang out and Earth joined the war at last, the Hazari and the watching galaxy would soon discover the indomitable strength and spirit of the human race. As the Hazari warships blotted out the sun, casting an ominous shadow over Earth, Isaac Reed raced against time to arm humanity's last hope, a devastating weapon reverse-engineered from captured alien tech. In hidden underground factories across the globe, robotic assembly lines whirred to life, churning out the sleek, deadly devices by the thousands. "I need every last one deployed yesterday," Isaac barked into his comm unit as he coordinated the breakneck installation of the weapons into the global defense grid. Crews of combat engineers worked around the clock, integrating the devices into key strategic locations from the Americas to Eurasia. The Hazari struck without warning or mercy, a rain of plasma bombardment shattering cities like glass beneath the alien onslaught. But as the alien ships moved to attack range, Isaac's finger hovered over the activation key. "Weapons hot! Let 'em have it!" he roared. On his order, the global network thrummed to life. To the shock of the Hazari, their advance stalled mid-stride as a web of crackling energy beams lanced up from the planet's surface, spearing into the hulls of their warships with devastating effect. The beams sliced through the Hazari's hardened armor like a scalpel, severing power conduits and igniting chain reaction explosions that blossomed into miniature suns. Within moments, the once invincible Hazari fleet lay in ruins, charred debris raining down through the atmosphere as the remnants burned. On the bridge of his flagship, Emperor Draco slammed an armored fist into the bulkhead, face twisted with disbelief. "Impossible," he snarled. "This primitive species, how?" An uneasy murmur spread through the surviving Hazari ships. Never had they faced a foe with the strength to rebuff their assault so decisively. For the first time in their long reign of conquest, the Hazari tasted the ashes of defeat. But Emperor Draco would not be undone so easily. Eyes smoldering with rage, he turned to his trusted lieutenant. "Deploy the ground forces, Commander Graz. Scour their cities to rubble. When we're done, not one mote of this cursed world will remain." On the streets of Earth's cities, the flash of teleporter beams heralded the arrival of the Hazari troops. Massively built, genetically engineered warriors bred for nothing but war. Their heavy steps shook the ground as they surged forth, plasma rifles primed to reap a bloody toll on the hapless human defenders. Hold fast, a human lieutenant shouted to his men, voice wavering. Protect the civvies at any... His words ended in a gurgle as a plasma bolt took him in the throat. All around him, outmatched human soldiers crumpled beneath the alien onslaught, rifles chattering in futile defiance. Until a new sound joined the cacophony of battle, the hiss-crack of advanced weaponry powering up. Soldiers in glinting alloy armor stormed out to meet the Hazari, gripping rifles that spat searing energy bolts. The Hazari's eyes widened as their own warriors staggered and fell, punched off their feet by the unfamiliar weapons. Forward! Drive them back! The human captain rallied, his voice amplified by his suit's helmet to a booming roar. The tide shifted as both sides crashed together in a writhing melee, deafening gunfire and sizzling energy beams filling the air. What the Hazari possessed in raw physical power, the human defenders now matched with their new armor and weapons. A Hazari trooper screeched as his plasma bolt spanged harmlessly off a human's energy shielding. The human lunged inside his guard, jamming an electrified combat knife up under the alien's jaw with a sizzling crunch. All across the world, the scene repeated as the Hazari ground forces met unexpected resistance from human soldiers wielding reverse-engineered alien tech. The Hazari's blitzkrieg ground assault slowed, then stalled. For every city block the aliens took, the human defenders exacted a blood price. In his command bunker, Isaac Reed watched the shifting tactical displays, eyes hardened. The ground battle hung on a razor's edge, threatening to teeter back in the aliens' favor through sheer numbers. Above the planet, the gutted Hazari fleet regrouped, the surviving ships moving into formation for another bombardment run. "Sir, we can't repel another full-scale assault," Isaac's aide reported, face pale. Isaac nodded grimly. "Get the defense grid back online. Power up everything we've got left. This is our last shot." In that moment, a new communique blinked on his console, a transmission from an unknown source. Isaac's eyes widened as he took in the contents. Mother of God, it's not just conquest thereafter. Draco plans to completely exterminate us as a message to the rest of the galaxy. A stunned silence filled the command center. Isaac closed his eyes for a long moment, the weight of billions of lives pressing down on him. When he opened them again, they blazed with purpose. "We can't stop them from down here. It's time to cut the head off the snake." His gaze fixed on the looming shape of the Hazari flagship. "Prep a strike team. We're going to infiltrate Draco's command ship and end this once and for all. One way or another, only one side is walking away from this." As the final clash loomed on the horizon and humanity's fate hung by a fraying thread, Isaac and his hand-picked warriors boarded a cloaked transport, streaking up to breach the flagship's defenses. The success or failure of this last daring plan would decide the future of Earth and the galaxy itself. Isaac's strike team burst onto the Hazari command ship, weapons blazing. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as they clashed with the ship's elite guards. The humans fought tooth and nail, inching forward corridor by corridor. "Push through! We need to reach the bridge," Isaac shouted over the din of battle. His team surged forward, their reverse-engineered weapons matching the Hazari's firepower. They rounded a corner and found themselves face-to-face with Emperor Draco on the bridge. The Hazari leader's lips curled into a sneer. "Fools, you've walked right into my trap." Draco gestured to a nearby console. "This ship is rigged to self-destruct. When it goes, the shockwave will scour your precious Earth clean of life." Isaac's blood ran cold. He glanced at his team, seeing the same willpower mirrored in their eyes. They had come too far to fail now. "Take them down!" Isaac roared. The bridge erupted into chaos. Isaac's outnumbered team fought like demons against Draco's personal guard. Energy beams crisscrossed the air as both sides traded fire. On Earth, the situation grew dire. The global defense network faltered under the Hazari onslaught. Key installations exploded in balls of fire, leaving gaping holes in humanity's defenses. In the command bunker, frantic reports poured in. "New York has fallen. London is overrun. Beijing's last line just broke." The remnants of Earth's armies dug in for a final stand, their backs against the wall. Back on the bridge, Isaac made a split-second decision. He lowered his weapon and locked eyes with Draco. You and me, one-on-one, winner takes all. Draco's eyes gleamed with arrogance. You dare challenge me, human? Unless you're afraid, Isaac taunted. With a roar, Draco lunged at Isaac. The two leaders collided in a brutal contest of strength and will. Draco's genetically enhanced muscles bulged as he grappled with the smaller human. But Isaac was quick, ducking and weaving, landing precision strikes where he could. As they fought, Isaac's team raced to disable the self-destruct. They huddled around computer terminals, fingers flying across alien interfaces. This encryption is insane, one technician growled in frustration. Keep at it, we're running out of time, another urged. The duel between Isaac and Draco reached its climax. Both were bloodied and gasping for breath. In a final desperate move, Isaac feinted left, then swept Draco's legs out from under him. The Hazari Emperor crashed to the deck. Before he could rise, Isaac had him pinned, arm twisted painfully behind his back. Yield, Isaac snarled. Draco struggled for a moment, then went limp. I yield, he choked out. At that moment, Isaac's team let out a cheer. Self-destruct disabled. They quickly broadcast the news of Draco's defeat and the averted catastrophe to the Hazari fleet. The effect was immediate. On Earth, the invading forces began to falter. Some threw down their weapons in surrender, while others turned tail and fled. The human resistance seized their chance. A coordinated counterattack drove the Hazari back, reclaiming lost ground mile by bloody mile. As word of humanity's impossible victory spread, subjugated worlds across the galaxy rose up against their Hazari oppressors. The once mighty empire began to crumble. Isaac and his team returned to a hero's welcome on Earth. Cheering crowds lined the streets, hailing the saviors of humanity. But Isaac knew the real work was just beginning. Earth lay in ruins, and a new galactic order was forming. As the dust settled, Isaac stood atop a hill overlooking a devastated city. He thought back on the incredible journey that had brought humanity from the brink of extinction to the dawn of a new era. The war was over, but humanity's story among the stars was just beginning. Isaac Reed stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship Defiance, watching the swirling vortex of hyperspace through the view screen. His face was grim, etched with the weight of responsibility. Ite to Hazari Prime? He asked. 10 minutes, sir, the helmsman replied. Isaac nodded, turning to address the assembled officers. This is it. The heart of the Hazari Empire. We hit them hard and fast. No mercy. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace, emerging into a sea of stars. Before them loomed the Hazari homeworld, a rust-red orb dripping with orbital defenses. All ships, fire at will, Isaac barked. The space around them erupted in a brilliant light show as Earth's reverse-engineered weapons lashed out. Hazari defense platforms crumbled under the onslaught. On the planet's surface, chaos reigned. Draco's former generals, once united in conquest, now turned on each other in a desperate bid for power. General Krazak bellowed orders from his command bunker. Launch everything we have! Crush those traitors! But his tirade was cut short as a plasma bolt vaporized him. His rival, General Vexnar, lowered his still-smoking weapon. I am in command now, he snarled. The infighting left the Hazari vulnerable. Isaac's fleet punched through their disorganized defenses, establishing a beachhead on the planet. Days turned to weeks as the campaign raged on. World after world fell to the combined might of Earth's interstellar fleet and the rebel forces they'd allied with. On the liberated world of Novan Prime, crowds thronged the streets. A Novan elder, his tentacles waving in joy, embraced Isaac. You have freed us from centuries of oppression. Hail Isaac Reed, savior of the galaxy. But even as billions celebrated, pockets of fanatical Hazari resistance remained. They struck from the shadows, wreaking havoc on occupied worlds. In a secure war room, Isaac faced down his advisors. We need to end this now. I have a plan. He laid out his strategy. Use Draco as bait, draw out the loyalists, crush them in one fell swoop. Admiral Chen, his most trusted officer, looked troubled. Sir, using prisoners as bait, it's not our way. Isaac's eyes hardened. This is war, Admiral. We do what's necessary. The trap was set. News of Draco's escape spread like wildfire through the galaxy. On a nameless world at the edge of known space, Hazari ships gathered. Draco stood before his assembled forces, unaware of the deception. My faithful warriors, the time has come to... His words were drowned out by the roar of engines as Isaac's fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Caught completely off guard, the Hazari were annihilated. In the aftermath, Isaac addressed the Interstellar Alliance. The Hazari threat is ended, but our work is not done. We must remain vigilant, united under strong leadership. But murmurs of dissent grew. On the algae-covered world of Xarxus, Ambassador Talana's fronds quivered in agitation. Reed speaks of unity, but his actions show tyranny. We did not throw off one oppressor, only to bow to another. The alliance fractured. Some rallied to Isaac, others broke away. A new galactic Cold War loomed on the horizon. Isaac stood alone in his quarters, staring at his reflection. The face that looked back at him was one he barely recognized. Everything I've done to keep us safe, he whispered. But deep down, a seed of doubt had taken root. The seed of doubt in Isaac's mind grew into a twisted, gnarled tree. He paced the command deck of his flagship, the Defiance, as reports of General Tarak's growing rebellion flooded in. Sir, we've lost contact with our garrison on Proxima 3, a young lieutenant reported, his voice trembling. Isaac's fist slammed onto a nearby console. Damn Tarak! I'll crush his insurrection myself if I have to. He turned to his chief of staff. Initiate Protocol Omega. I want every world even suspected of harboring rebel sympathizers locked down. No one enters or leaves without my express permission. The officer hesitated. Sir, that's millions of innocent civilians. Do it, Isaac roared. I won't lose everything we've fought for to these traitors. Across the galaxy, Isaac's iron fist clenched. On the lush world of New Eden, families huddled in fear as Interstellar Alliance warships darkened the skies. Heavily armed troops marched through streets, weapons trained on terrified civilians. But Isaac's crackdown only fanned the flames of rebellion. On the mining colony of Ceres, workers threw down their tools and took up arms. No more tyranny, they chanted, raising the banner of Tarak's rebellion. Isaac watched the reports with growing fury. He summoned his top scientists to a secure chamber deep within the Defiance. I need weapons, he growled. Something to make these rebels think twice about defying me. The lead researcher, Dr. Alara Chen, cleared her throat nervously. We've been developing a new form of quantum disruptor. It could theoretically destabilize the very fabric of matter within a planetary atmosphere. But, sir, the civilian casualties would be acceptable, Isaac cut her off. Begin production immediately. Meanwhile, in a hidden rebel base, General Tarak addressed his growing army of defectors and idealists. Isaac Reed has betrayed everything we fought for, he declared. He's become the very monster we sought to destroy. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Tarak's eyes narrowed. But we have an ace up our sleeve. Bring in our guest. 2 guards escorted a figure into the room. Gasps echoed as the assembled rebels recognized the unmistakable form of Emperor Draco. The Hazari leader's eyes burned with hatred. I will help you destroy Reed, he hissed, in exchange for my freedom and a slice of your new empire. Tarak nodded grimly. Agreed. Now tell us about these secret weapon caches you mentioned. The conflict exploded into open warfare. Over the neutral world of Avalon, Tarak's rebels struck without warning. Newly upgraded fighters screamed out of hyperspace, their Hazari-enhanced weapons tearing through Isaac's vanguard fleet. On the bridge of his command ship, Isaac watched in horror as his forces were decimated. Impossible, he whispered. How did they... An aide interrupted. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures. They're powering up some kind of superweapon. Isaac's eyes widened in realization. "Draco!" he snarled. "Tarok must have freed him." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target their civilian centers. Use the quantum disruptors." The officer blanched. "But sir, there are billions of innocent—" "Do it now!" Isaac roared. The weapons fired. Across Avalon and a dozen other worlds, the sky itself seemed to tear apart. Millions screamed as the very air ignited, scouring the surfaces clean of life. In the aftermath, Tarok's voice echoed across every communication channel in the galaxy. "People of the Alliance, you've seen Isaac Reed's true colors. He's become a butcher, no better than the Hazari we overthrew. Join us before it's too late." System after system flocked to Tarok's banner. Isaac's support crumbled. In a final high-stakes endeavor, Tarok's fleet launched an all-out assault on the Defiance itself. Alarms blared as the rebel armada tore through the flagship's defenses. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, an officer shouted. "We can't hold them off." Isaac stumbled as a direct hit rocked the ship. The experimental shields flickered, barely holding. He knew he had only moments before they failed completely. With shaking hands, he input his personal override code into the ship's computer. A hidden door slid open, revealing a figure he'd sworn never to release. "Well, well," Emperor Draco sneered, "how the mighty have fallen." Isaac's heart made. "I'm giving you your freedom," he growled, "in exchange for your help crushing this rebellion once and for all." Draco's eyes glittered with malice. "Oh, I'll help you, human," he purred, "but the price may be higher than you're willing to pay." As rebel boarding parties fought their way towards the bridge, Isaac's heart raced as he input the final sequence of Draco's override codes into the ship's central computer. His fingers flew across the alien interface, sweat beading on his brow. The execution chamber buzzed with the anticipation of bloodthirsty Hazari loyalists, their eyes fixed on the former rebel leader. Draco loomed over Isaac, his scaled face twisted in a triumphant sneer. "Any last words, human?" he hissed. Isaac's eyes darted to the computer screen. A green light blinked. Confirmation. He allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Just one," he said. "Now." The ship's lights flickered. A low hum built throughout the vessel, growing in intensity. Draco's eyes widened in sudden realization. "What have you done?" he roared, lunging for Isaac. But it was too late. The ship's systems went haywire. Gravity plating failed, sending Hazari soldiers tumbling through the air. Weapon systems powered down. Life support sputtered. Isaac used the moment of chaos to break free from his restraints. He launched himself off the execution platform, colliding with a flailing Hazari guard. Their struggle was brief. Isaac emerged victorious, armed with the alien's particle rifle. Alarms blared throughout the ship. The Hazari fleet hung motionless in space, crippled by Isaac's hidden commands. On the bridge, panicked officers fought to regain control of their vessels. "Sir," a frantic technician called out, "we're detecting similar malfunctions across the entire fleet." Draco snarled, his claws digging into the arm of his command chair. "Find Reed, now!" But Isaac was already on the move. He navigated the twisting corridors of the Hazari dreadnought, dispatching confused guards with precision shots from his stolen weapon. Each turn brought him closer to his goal, the hangar bay. Behind him, he could hear the thunderous footsteps of Draco's elite guard giving chase. Isaac's lungs burned as he pushed himself to run faster. He burst into the hangar just as a squad of Hazari soldiers poured in from another entrance. Plasma bolts sizzled past his head as Isaac dove for cover behind a stack of supply crates. The firefight was intense but brief. Isaac's aim was true, and soon the hangar floor was littered with Hazari bodies. He sprinted for the nearest shuttle, praying the sabotage hadn't affected its systems. The shuttle's engines roared to life as Isaac's fingers danced across the controls. He lifted off just as Draco himself stormed into the hangar, rage contorting his alien features. "You won't escape!" Draco bellowed, firing wildly at the retreating shuttle. But Isaac was already clear of the dreadnought's energy field. He punched in the coordinates for the nearest rebel outpost and engaged the hyperdrive. As the stars blurred around him, Isaac allowed himself a moment to breathe. He had survived, but the war was just the beginning. Draco was wounded, but not defeated. The rebels were scattered, and Isaac himself, he had walked a dark path in his quest for victory. The shuttle emerged from hyperspace near a nondescript asteroid field. Hidden among the rocks was a secret rebel base. Isaac opened a secure channel. "This is Isaac Reed," he transmitted. "Authorization code Sierra Echo 972. I need to speak with General Tarok immediately." There was a long pause before a familiar voice crackled over the comm. "Isaac, we thought you were dead." Isaac's expression hardened. "Not yet," he said, "but we've got work to do." Isaac's fingers flew across the Dreadnought's control panel, inputting a complex sequence of commands. His heart raced as he activated the hidden protocol he'd embedded deep within the Hazari fleet systems. Alarms blared throughout the massive vessel. On the main view screen, Draco's eyes widened in shock as his own ships began to turn their weapons on each other. "What treachery is this?" the Hazari Emperor roared, smacking his heads on his command chair. Isaac allowed himself a grim smile. "Insurance," he said coldly. "Did you really think I'd trust you completely?" The bridge erupted into chaos as officers frantically tried to regain control of their vessels. Explosions bloomed silently in the void of space as Hazari ships tore each other apart, caught in an inescapable web of conflicting commands. Taking advantage of the confusion, Isaac bolted from the bridge. In the corridor, he was met by a small group of human rebels, their faces concealed by stolen Hazari armor. "This way, sir," one of them hissed, gesturing toward an emergency access hatch. They fought their way through the labyrinthine interior of the massive ship. The Dreadnought shuddered and groaned around them as systems failed and explosions rocked its superstructure. Hazari soldiers, caught off guard and leaderless, fell before the rebels' coordinated assault. "The hangar is just ahead," another rebel called out as they rounded a corner. A squad of Hazari troops blocked their path. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air. Isaac dove for cover behind a bulkhead, returning fire with a captured Hazari weapon. His allies moved with practiced precision, outmaneuvering the confused defenders. With a final push, they burst into the cavernous hangar bay. An evacuation shuttle sat ready, its engines already humming to life. As Isaac sprinted up the ramp, the deck beneath his feet bucked violently. The Dreadnought was tearing itself apart. The shuttle rocketed out of the disintegrating flagship, weaving through the debris of what had once been the mightiest fleet in the galaxy. Isaac watched through the view screen as Draco's forces, caught between rebel attacks and their own malfunctioning ships, crumbled into disarray. His comm unit crackled to life. "Isaac, thank the stars you're alive." It was General Tarok's voice, tense but filled with newfound hope. "We're pressing the attack. The Hazari defenses are in complete chaos." Isaac nodded grimly. "Good. I'm transmitting coordinates now. There are resistance cells across a dozen Hazari-occupied worlds waiting for our signal. It's time to light the spark of rebellion across the entire empire." As the shuttle streaked towards the nearest rebel base, Isaac allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. The tide had turned. The real war for galactic freedom was about to begin. The war room aboard the Defiance buzzed with activity as Isaac Reed surveyed the holographic map of known space. Red markers indicated Warlord Arcus's latest raids, a scattering of violent incursions across the fringes of former Hazari territory. "Status report," Isaac barked, his eyes fixed on the display. Commander Chen, a seasoned human officer, stepped forward. "Sir, Arcus hit 3 more outposts in the Taurus sector. Our supply lines are stretched thin." Isaac's eyes, sharp. He turned to face the gathered officers, a mix of human rebels and pardoned Hazari commanders. The tension in the room was palpable. "We can't afford to let this continue," Isaac said. "Prepare the fleet for immediate deployment." A low murmur rippled through the assembled leaders. Captain Zorn, a grizzled Hazari veteran, spoke up. "With respect, human, our forces are still integrating. We need more time." Time is a luxury we don't have. Isaac cut him off. He tapped a control, bringing up footage of burning orbital stations and shattered colonies. Every day we delay, Arcus grows stronger. The door hissed open, and General Terok strode in, his face a mask of barely contained fury. So this is how you run your war council now, Reed? Conspiring with the enemy? Isaac met Terok's glare. These are our allies now, General. We need their expertise to... To what? Terok spat. To prop up your new empire? You're no better than Draco. The room erupted into shouts and accusations. Isaac smacked his palm on the console, silencing the chaos. Enough. We face a common threat. Petty squabbles won't stop Arcus from tearing apart everything we've fought for. Terok sneered. And your solution is to crawl into bed with the same butchers who oppressed us for generations? I won't stand for it. Then leave, Isaac said coldly, but don't get in our way. The general's face reddened. This isn't over, Reed, he stormed out, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Isaac turned back to the war table. We strike within 48 hours. I want every available ship ready for combat. Dismissed. As the officers filed out, Isaac sagged against the console. The weight of leadership pressed down on him like a physical force. He didn't notice Commander Chen lingering behind. Sir, she said softly, the crew, they're worried. There's talk of desertion, even mutiny in some quarters. Isaac's eyes hardened. Then weed out the troublemakers. We can't afford dissent, not now. Chen hesitated. And what about the riots on Novalis Prime? The Council is demanding action. Let them demand, Isaac growled. Once we crush Arcus, they'll fall in line. The commander nodded, her expression uneasy. As she left, Isaac turned back to the star map. He zoomed in on a cluster of systems near the galactic core, the heart of Arcus's territory. I'm coming for you, he whispered. Across the sector, on a dozen worlds, protests raged. Citizens who had once hailed Isaac as a liberator now burned him in effigy. News feeds crackled with angry voices decrying his betrayal of the rebellion's ideals. But aboard the Defiance, a new alliance was forming. Human rebels worked alongside Hazari warriors, readying weapons and calibrating shields. In the hangar bay, mixed squadrons of fighters prepared for launch. As the deadline approached, Isaac stood on the bridge, watching his fleet assemble. He felt the weight of history on his shoulders. This battle would decide the hope of the universe. All ships report ready, sir, the tactical officer announced. Isaac nodded grimly. Signal the fleet. We jump in 5 minutes. As the countdown began, Isaac allowed himself a moment of doubt. Had he gone too far? Was Terok right? The faces of fallen comrades flashed through his mind, along with the billions who had suffered under Hazari rule. But there was no turning back now. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance. Isaac Reed had made his choice. For better or worse, the die was cast. The Defiance shuddered as another volley of plasma fire slammed into its shields. Isaac Reed gripped the command chair, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Cravius Prime loomed before them, a fortress world overflowing with weaponry. Status report, Isaac barked. Commander Chen's voice crackled over the comm. Shields holding at 62%, sir. Artok's vessels are engaging the outer defense grid. Isaac nodded grimly. Press the attack. We need to punch through their lines. The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as officers relayed orders. Outside, the void of space lit up with an apocalyptic light show. Hazari dreadnoughts, their hulls scarred and blackened, pushed forward relentlessly. Smaller craft darted between them, exchanging bursts of energy weapons fire. Sir, a junior officer called out, we're detecting a massive energy spike from the surface. Isaac's eyes widened. Evasive maneuvers now. The Defiance banked hard, narrowly avoiding a searing beam of energy that lanced through space where they had been moments before. The beam caught an allied frigate, vaporizing it instantly. That's their primary planetary cannon, Isaac growled. We need boots on the ground to take it out. Prepare the drop pods. Minutes later, Isaac stood in the launch bay, surrounded by a mixed force of human commandos and Hazari shock troopers. The aliens towered over their human counterparts, their midnight black armor gleaming under the harsh lights. "You all know the mission," Isaac addressed the assembled warriors. "Hit hard, hit fast, and don't stop until that cannon is silenced." A chorus of affirmatives echoed through the bay. Isaac climbed into the lead pod, sealing himself in as the launch countdown began. With a violent jolt, the pods were fired from the Defiance, streaking towards the planet's surface. The descent was a hellish gauntlet of fire and shrapnel. Point defense turrets tracked the pods, filling the air with streams of lethal projectiles. Isaac's pod shook violently as a near miss sent it spinning. He gritted his teeth, fighting the G-forces as he wrestled the pod back on course. They hit the ground hard, scattering across a blasted industrial hellscape. Isaac kicked open his pod's hatch, plasma rifle at the ready. All around him, human and Hazari alike were emerging from their pods, forming up into squads with practiced efficiency. "Move out," Isaac ordered, leading the charge towards a hulking factory complex. The air was thick with acrid smoke and the sounds of battle. They encountered resistance almost immediately. Arcus's troops, a motley assortment of Hazari loyalists and mercenary scum, poured fire from fortified positions. Isaac dove behind a twisted piece of machinery as plasma bolts sizzled past. "Suppressing fire!" he shouted. The Hazari shock troopers responded instantly, their heavy weapons unleashing a devastating barrage. Under cover of this onslaught, Isaac and his human commandos advanced. They moved from cover to cover, clearing out pockets of resistance with brutal efficiency. The factory became a maze of death, every corner potentially hiding an ambush. As they fought their way deeper into the complex, the ground beneath their feet trembled. The planetary cannon was firing again, its thunderous report echoing through the structure. "We're running out of time," Isaac muttered. He keyed his comm unit. "All teams converge on the central chamber. That's where we'll find the cannon's control systems." The final push was a blur of violence. Isaac's forces smashed through the last lines of defense, leaving a trail of broken bodies and shattered equipment in their wake. They burst into the central chamber, a cavernous space dominated by a massive reactor core. "Plant the charges," Isaac ordered. "We'll blow this whole place sky high." As his troops worked feverishly to set the explosives, a proximity alarm blared. Isaac spun, rifle raised, to see a massive armored figure step out of the shadows. It was a Hazari warrior, but one unlike any he'd ever seen. Its armor was festooned with trophies and kill markers, and in its hands, it held a crackling energy axe. "Isaac Reed," the figure's voice boomed. "I am Warlord Arcus. You've come far, but your journey ends here." Isaac didn't waste time with words. He opened fire, his plasma bolts splashing harmlessly against Arcus' advanced shielding. The warlord charged, his axe cleaving through the air with impossible speed. The two leaders clashed in a furious melee, trading blows as the battle raged around them. Isaac's rifle was knocked from his hands, forcing him to draw a vibroblade. He ducked and weaved, using his smaller size to his advantage against the hulking Hazari. "Sir," Chen's voice cut through the chaos, "charges are set. We need to go now." Isaac feinted left, then drove his blade into a gap in Arcus's armor. The warlord roared in pain and fury, but before he could retaliate, a barrage of fire from the Hazari shock troopers drove him back. "Fall back," Isaac ordered. "Move!" They retreated at a dead run, the complex shaking itself apart around them. Behind them, Arcus's enraged bellows were cut short as the charges detonated. The planetary cannon's spire collapsed in on itself, a massive fireball consuming everything in its path. Isaac and his forces barely made it to the extraction point, boarding dropships as the factory complex was reduced to rubble. As they ascended back towards the Defiance, Isaac watched the burning wreckage recede. "This is Reed," he transmitted. "The cannon is down. All ships, commence final assault." In orbit, the battle took on a new intensity. With the planet's primary defense neutralized, Isaac's fleet pressed their advantage. Artok's Hazari dreadnoughts formed an unstoppable wedge, smashing through what remained of Arcus's forces. Hours later, as the last pockets of resistance were being mopped up, Isaac stood on the bridge of the Defiance. The stars beyond the view screen were obscured by the aftermath of battle, shattered hulls and debris fields stretching as far as the eye could see. Commander Artok approached, his massive form dwarfing the human officers around him. "The day is ours, Reed," he rumbled. "Arcus's fleet is broken, his followers scattered to the wind." Isaac nodded, allowing himself a small measure of satisfaction. "And the warlord himself?" "Captured," Artok confirmed. "My warriors took him alive in the final push. He awaits your judgment." "Good," Isaac said. "Have him brought aboard for questioning. I want to know everything he knows about—" Artok held up a clawed hand, cutting him off. "There is something else you should know," the Hazari commander said, his voice low and urgent. "We've been interrogating the prisoners. What they've told us, it's troubling." Isaac's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Artok leaned in close, his alien features twisted with concern. Arcus was not working alone. He spoke of masters in the dark spaces between stars, of an empire that makes the Hazari look like children playing at war. A chill ran down Isaac's spine as Artok continued. "I fear, my friend, that this victory may have been just the beginning of something far worse." Isaac's eyes narrowed as he processed Artok's words. The bridge of the Defiance fell silent, the weight of this new revelation settling over the crew like a shroud. "Show me everything!" Isaac ordered, his voice taut with urgency. Artok nodded, his massive form looming over the holographic display as he brought up the intelligence files. Images flickered to life, grainy surveillance footage, intercepted transmissions, and captured research logs. At the center of it all, a single Hazari face. Tortoise. "She was brilliant," Artok rumbled, his voice tinged with a mix of admiration and disgust. "One of our finest minds in bioweaponry. But her ambition—" Isaac leaned in, studying the data. "How long has she been operating under our noses?" "Years," Chen interjected, stepping forward with a datapad. "Sir, we've cross-referenced her activities with known pirate raids. Arcus's forces weren't just pillaging, they were gathering specific resources, test subjects." Isaac's fists clenched. "And we played right into her hands, focusing on Arcus while she built something far worse." The tactical display shifted, zooming in on a desolate world. Karalis, a name that sent a chill through even the hardened Hazari warriors. "Our last intel puts her primary research facility here," Artok said, indicating a vast underground complex. "If she succeeds in weaponizing this pathogen, then everything we fought for was for nothing," Isaac finished grimly. He turned to face his assembled officers, human and Hazari alike. "I need volunteers. This mission is beyond dangerous. We're talking about confronting horrors that defy description. I won't order anyone to—" "I'm in," Chen said immediately, stepping forward. One by one, others joined her. Isaac nodded, a fierce pride welling up inside him. "Prep for immediate deployment," he ordered. "We hit hard and fast. Every second counts." Hours later, Isaac stood in the cargo bay of a stealth dropship, surrounded by his strike team. Human Marines checked their weapons with grim efficiency, while Hazari warriors adjusted their battle armor. A small group of xenobiologists huddled near the rear, their faces pale but determined. 2 minutes to touchdown," the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Isaac addressed his team one final time. "Remember your training, watch each other's backs, and no matter what you see down there, stay focused on the mission. We're here to stop Tortoise and destroy her work. Nothing else matters." The dropship shuddered as it entered Karalis's atmosphere. Through the viewports, Isaac caught glimpses of a world ravaged by unchecked experimentation, vast swathes of mutated vegetation, lakes of bubbling chemical waste. With a bone-jarring impact, they touched down. The bay doors hissed open, and Isaac led the charge into a nightmare. The air itself seemed wrong, thick with an acrid tang that burned the lungs. In the distance, misshapen silhouettes lurched and writhed, barely recognizable as once living beings. "Movement!" a Marine shouted, raising his rifle. From the shadows of a nearby structure, a creature emerged. It might have once been Hazari, or perhaps human. Now it was a horrific fusion of flesh and metal, its limbs re-imbued with clicking, whirring appendages. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light as it let out a piercing shriek. "Open fire!" Isaac roared. The air filled with the hiss of plasma bolts and the staccato bark of human weaponry. The mutant creature jerked and twitched under the barrage but kept advancing, its metal parts seemingly impervious to damage. A Hazari warrior stepped forward, hefting a massive energy axe. With a single fluid motion, he cleaved the abomination in two. It fell, twitching and sparking. "Press on," Isaac ordered, trying to keep the revulsion from his voice. "We need to find the main entrance to the facility." They fought their way through a gauntlet of monstrosities, each more horrifying than the last. Flesh melded with machinery in ways that defied natural law, creating guardians that were as resilient as they were insane. Finally, they reached a massive blast door set into the side of a cliff face. As Isaac's team set to work bypassing the security systems, a bone-chilling howl echoed across the blasted landscape. "Incoming!" Chen shouted. A tide of mutant horrors surged towards them from all directions. Isaac's strike force formed a defensive perimeter, pouring fire into the approaching horde. "How much longer?" Isaac yelled over the din of battle. "Almost there," a technician called back, her fingers flying over a portable terminal. The mutants closed in, their twisted forms absorbing punishment that would have felled any normal being. Isaac watched in horror as one of his Marines was dragged down, screaming as metallic tendrils burrowed into his flesh. With a thunderous groan, the blast door finally began to open. "Fall back," Isaac ordered. "Into the facility! Move!" They retreated in good order, laying down suppressing fire as they backed through the opening. As soon as the last team member was through, Isaac thumped his hand on the emergency lockdown panel. The blast door slammed shut with earth-shaking force, sealing them inside Tortoise's lair. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the labored breathing of the strike team. "Status report," Isaac demanded, his eyes already scanning the cavernous entry chamber for threats. 3 wounded, 1 lost, Chen reported grimly. "But we're inside." Isaac nodded, pushing down the guilt and focusing on the mission. "All right, people, stay sharp. We find Tortoise. We end this madness, whatever it takes." They pressed deeper into the facility, following the trail of Tortoise's insanity. With each step, the true scope of her ambition became clear. Vast chambers housed rows upon rows of stasis pods, each containing a half-formed abomination. Laboratories filled with bubbling vats of mutagenic agents lined their path. And always, there were more guardians. Wave after wave of cyber-mutant monstrosities hurled themselves at Isaac's team. They fought with the desperation of those who knew the stakes, not just their own lives, but the future of all sentient life in the galaxy. At last, they reached the heart of the complex, a massive circular chamber dominated by a central pillar that pulsed with sickly green energy. And there, working feverishly at a control panel, stood Tortoise herself. The Hazari scientist spun to face them, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and manic glee. "You're too late," she screeched. "My children are ready to be born." Isaac stepped forward, his weapon trained on Tortoise. "It's over," he said firmly. "Shut it down, now." Tortoise laughed, a high, keening sound that sent shivers down Isaac's spine. "You don't understand. I'm saving the galaxy. Only through unity can we achieve true peace." "By turning everyone into mindless drones?" Isaac shot back. "That's not peace. It's slavery." "It's evolution!" Tortoise snarled. She gestured wildly at the pulsing pillar behind her. "In moments, my pathogen will be released. Billions will be transformed, perfected." Isaac's finger tightened on the trigger. "Last chance, Tortoise. Stand down." The mad scientist's face contorted with rage. "Never!" She slammed her hand down on a nearby console. Alarms blared throughout the facility. The central pillar began to glow brighter, the pulsing quickening to a fever pitch. "She's activated the launch sequence," one of the xenobiologists shouted. "Those are delivery missiles. They'll spread the pathogen across half the sector." Isaac's mind raced. There was no time for subtlety, no room for half measures. He keyed his comm unit. "All units, initiate Protocol Omega. Repeat, Protocol Omega is now in effect." A series of acknowledgements crackled over the line. Isaac turned to his team. "We've got less than 5 minutes. Plant the charges and fall back to the extraction point." As his soldiers moved to set the explosives, Isaac advanced on Tortoise. The HFY scientist backed away, her earlier bravado replaced by fear. "You can't do this," she pleaded. "My work. It's too important." Isaac's voice was cold. "Your work ends here." With lightning speed, he lashed out, catching Tortoise with a vicious right hook. The scientist crumpled, unconscious. "Chen," Isaac called. "Help me secure the prisoner. The rest of you, move out." They retreated through the facility at a dead run, the countdown to detonation ticking away in Isaac's head. Behind them, the missiles began to rise from their silos, ready to spread Tortoise's nightmare across the stars. They burst out of the main entrance, sprinting for the waiting dropship. Isaac's lungs burned as he pushed himself to the limit, half carrying, half dragging Tortoise's limp form. 3, 2, 1. Isaac counted down as they cleared the blast radius. The world went white. A roar louder than anything Isaac had ever experienced washed over them as the facility and its payload of horrors were vaporized in a cataclysmic explosion. As the dropship streaked towards orbit, Isaac sagged against the bulkhead. The immediate threat was neutralized, but he knew this was only the beginning. The existence of such weapons could never be truly erased. The specter of Tortoise's work would haunt the galaxy for years to come. He looked at the unconscious form of the HFY scientist, then out at the scarred surface of Corrales receding below them. The price of peace, it seemed, would always be eternal vigilance.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.